Welcome everyone. Those of you who were with us for the prior video know we talked about this book. It's the new Barber book from Milady, release date January 2nd or 3rd, 2025. Now most of you will end up taking your barber exam and you will not have had this textbook. And Cosmos, before you leave, we're going to talk about you as well. Before I begin, make sure you hit the subscribe button at the bottom of this page. That way you're notified of all the upcoming videos. And now, with that business out of the way, last year Milady came out with this cosmetology book. Most cosmetology students who are taking their test don't have that book. Most cosmetology students still have this book. That's because most schools are still selling this book. The problem is that's not the book your test is coming out of, and that partially explains why the pass rate is so bad. Now we're setting up for the same problem with barbers. Most barber students will have this textbook. I've been in this business for 40 years. This is honestly the best barber book they've ever made. I would go so far as to say it's better than most of the cosmetology books they've made. They don't care what I think. Starting in January 2nd or 3rd of 2025, this is the book that they're using. Now, I suspect that just like last year, schools will be very slow to put that book on their shelves and in the students' hands. The students are going to be given a book that's out of date. Now, the problem is, Milady has worked with PSI to formulate your new test. Now, I and people I work with have sat through a number of training classes, so we're very familiar with what's happening with the new test. If you want every question on the new test, here's where they are. In this book. Now, I'm going to explain something to you about the test, and people don't seem to understand this, and I don't understand why the teachers don't make the students understand what I'm going to say. The state has about 800 questions in their test bank of questions. They will push a button, randomly your test will appear. Now, some states will have as few as 60 questions, some will have as many as 120 questions. But the point is, they're randomly selected, just like lottery numbers. You have no way to know which 60 or 80 or 100 questions you're going to get. And those of you who've taken the test multiple times know that it's never the same questions. Now, if you knew which questions you were going to get, you'd of course pass your test. But if you could see into the future, you would see the lottery numbers this weekend and you would become a millionaire. You wouldn't have to be watching these videos. You could do that several weeks in a row and pretty soon you'd be richer than Elon Musk because you can see the future. But you can't. We give you every single question. So yes, you'll have to learn 800 questions and the answers if you want to be sure of passing your test. Otherwise, you can just gamble. The teachers are not telling you what's on the test. They're not even using the textbook that the test is using. That's how I can guarantee you they're not telling you what's on the test, because they're not even using the textbook that the test is coming from. PSI and Milady have teamed up. They've created your new test beginning in early January 2025. Your book, unless you have the new book behind me, which I'm guessing you probably don't, but if you do, and you read thoroughly all 1,100 pages in the 2 volumes, because it's a 2-volume set, then you might have all the questions. Otherwise, you'll need to get our book. Once again, it only has 100 pages. It has every question that the state board has asked or will be asking for the coming year. You read this book and you're good to go. Now, a couple of the points I want to make here. I have to look at my notes. Sometimes I forget where I'm going with these things. Okay? The wording on the test is incredibly confusing to most students. I wish I had $1 for every time a student told me, I've taken my test multiple times and the test questions were never the same. And this is how we end up with 800 questions in our study guide, because that's what the state has. Keep in mind, they cannot make up new facts, okay? It doesn't make any difference. The opposite color of yellow is going to be violet. Okay? 2 plus 2 is going to be 4 no matter what. But the wording of the questions is so confusing. And that's why I invite you to watch our next video. We're going to discuss different wording scenarios. What the state does. They cannot change the facts. They can change the wording. Now, if you want to pass your test, you will need to understand all the different ways they can word a question. Give us a call if you have any questions, 760-534-4434. Visit us online, www.cosmetologystateboardexam.com. On the left-hand side of the company's website, it lists all the products they sell. Cosmetology, then barber, then aesthetics, then nail technology. Everything is available in both Spanish and English. There's hard copy versions like I've showed you. There's also email versions available immediately. Give us a call if you have any questions, 760-534-4434. We have telephone personnel in both English and Spanish. Visit us online at www.cosmetologystateboardexam.com. Don't forget to subscribe. Watch our next video on the wording of the state board test questions.